Well, welcome everyone to a busy Friday in the last week of the semester. And I know for some people, this may be a religious holiday, which makes me even more grateful, I guess, that so many people are willing to come out for it. So thank you for being here. And at this point, we will call the meeting to order. We'll begin with the roll call. Colleen?
Barber, Barrett,
Here.
Bowmanier,
Here.
Branyan,
Here.
Brandenburg,
Here.
Brown,
Here.
Carmack,
Here.
Chambliss,
Here.
Chong, I saw you. All right, I know you're here.
Here. I just knew it.
I knew I saw you. Corley,
Here.
Deweese,
Here.
Edelman,
Here.
Elman,
Here.
Urban,
Here.
Evans,
Here.
Fuentes, Galt,
Here.
Gordon,
Here.
Graffius, Green,
Here.
Hadley,
Here.
Hester,
Here.
Ivory,
Here.
Pasmino, Kellison, Khan,
Here.
Kimbrell, Nice,
Here.
Kramer,
Here.
Sangwon Lee, Trong Lee,
Here.
McKinnon,
Here.
Mason, McClenny, McLean,
Here.
Nickel,
Here.
Olivieri,
Here.
Pisani.
This is Mason. Mason is present. I'm sorry, I had technical difficulties.
Oh, no problem. I've got you.
And McClenny is present. I didn't.
Okay, I got you too, Tammy.
Thank you.
And then Lynn, you're here. I see you. Thank you. Pinko, Richter,
Here.
Scullin,
Here.
Self,
Here.
Scott Meyer,
Here.
cracking me up, Cal. Shoemake, Snipes,
Here.
Swift,
Here.
Sykes,
Here.
Talbot,
Here.
Tawidi,
Here.
Weber,
Here.
Wee,
Here.
Williams,
Here.
Wofford, Yoder. Oh, I see you, Sarah. Dwayne Yoder, Jim Yoder.
Jim Yoder's here.
Okay, gotcha. All right, I'm gonna do searches for people in the chat. If you came in late, just send me a note and I'll mark you here.
Song Lee is here. Yeah,
I
actually, I
got you.
was muted.
Okay, I've got you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All
Very
right.
good. Thank you, Colleen. Well, we're pleased to welcome the president back to our Senate meeting, and we'll begin with the president's report. Dr. Kelly, the floor is yours.
Great. I appreciate that very much. Hope everybody is well now that the weather has turned into a beautiful spring. I obviously sent everybody a lot of information this morning and from the desk of the president, so I won't repeat most of those things and address some things that are a little more present. Spent 3 days this week with the Board of Regents. That was held at Albany State University. From time to time, the Board of Regents moves around and holds that meeting at a campus, which is a great experience, especially this week because we have so many members of the Board of Regents that are brand new over the last few months. So this is really the first time where we had a completely solidified board all meeting at once, along with our new chancellor in sunny Purdue. And there were some takeaways from that meeting that are important for everybody to know because they changed the outline for how we're going to do business a little bit. First and foremost, we did get our master's degree in integrative wellness approved by the board, and that is off to SACS now for approval so that we can start offering that credential. That's a great accomplishment for that for that department because health and wellness are areas that are probably more important or at least get more attention in the world now than they did years ago. And we are able to lead on that front. Second, there was a policy change that I had requested for the University of West Georgia that was approved, and it's an important one for us for no other reason than to have equity in a competitive marketplace. I think everybody can quickly agree that despite the fact that we're in a university system and we cooperate and we're governed by the same board and the like, it doesn't change the fact that we're in a hyper-competitive marketplace. And we have had a border state waiver for Alabama for a number of years. My request to the Board of Regents was we would like access to all of the state borders or out-of-state tuition waivers for all of the border states for the state of Georgia. So that would include Alabama, Tennessee, North Carolina, South Carolina, and Florida. Other institutions inside of the USG did have this access to those out-of-state waivers. The University of West Georgia was among a very small handful that was not provided that opportunity. So over the last couple of months, we've worked through that to the point where the board graciously and I think correctly awarded those out-of-state tuition waivers across the board to all of our institutions with a 3-year sunset. That's going to give us the ability to immediately make certain that we can offer the opportunity for students in the state of Florida to all of a sudden have in-state tuition in Georgia. That's a competitive advantage for us because Georgia ranks third in the southern states for cost of earning an undergraduate education. And that's critical. I mean, I will tell you, even in my previous institution in South Carolina, students would, as an in-state student, you'd be paying almost twice what you pay at the University of West Georgia as an in-state student. And now we have the opportunity to go and provide that same opportunity here to students in surrounding states. We're also geographically positioned in a way that makes a lot of sense for us. Our proximity, not only to Alabama, but also to Tennessee. You can't go anywhere in Florida without going through Atlanta because of 75, and that provides an opportunity for the University of West Georgia. There are benefits to come from that, and Vice President Scranage is working through strategy so that we can, in a targeted fashion, go and try to take advantage of that and attract students to UWG. It won't change everything. I don't expect that we're going to have flood of thousands and thousands of students from other states. But it does give us the opportunity to, in targeted markets, to be able to go and offer the experience of UWG to students who are looking for this type of experience where it might not be available in their state. I noted South Carolina, one of the incentives is because of cost, but I can easily flip over to the state of Florida, where you have 12 public universities and all of them are very large, right? Even on the smaller side, they're our size. And the only exception to that would be the new schools. So you don't have a lot of options in the state of Florida for the type of environment that we provide here. And I'm looking forward to being able to have us provide all of those opportunities and have that limitation removed. Additionally, and I think I noted it this morning, I think we're going to note it every time we get a chance. The Board of Regents did this week approve the $5,000 raises that will be in everybody's paycheck starting in the month of April for biweekly. Those payments, I believe, have already gone out. And for those who are paid on a monthly basis, you'll see those emerge toward the end of the month. Now, we've explained the mechanics, but that doesn't hurt to remind everybody that is effective in fiscal year 22, which is the fiscal year we're in now and ends June 30th, as of July 1st. So every employee, if you were employed on July 1st through the present, the state has awarded that raise in a way where you'll get a lump sum in your first paycheck. That lump sum is, of course, subject to any federal taxes and the like, but you will get a lump sum, and then you will see that increase in your paycheck in May and June of 22. For fiscal year 23, we just start out with that raise in place. One of the other things that we're trying to do is also leverage those $5,000 increases to lift up the University of West Georgia generally. I say that because I spent 8 years of my career negotiating on behalf of the university with the faculty union at the University of West Florida. One of the things that we discovered was how diminished our space was in the marketplace for talent because of compensation levels at that institution. We were able to correct a lot of that over time. And we're really talking about resetting baselines. And that's what has occurred over the last 12 to 18 months is really a resetting of baselines in so many different industries, and should happen for us. We were really attracting talent at compensation levels that were below what I consider market. I say that because most of the jobs that we hire for at the University of West Georgia are jobs that compete in the national marketplace, but we're paying localized salaries in some cases, not all, but in some cases. And from my perspective, paying below the 100% of the Coupa midpoint is not where we want to be. Now, I'm going to tell you right now, we do not have the financial capacity to address the issue that I just raised. We cannot just reset salaries at the university. We have to do that in an incremental fashion, but we have to know what the goal is too. And the goal from my perspective is for us to create the most competitive compensation platform that we can for the institution. I've never in my career seen a flat amount raise like what the state of Georgia awarded this year. It gives us a chance to reset baselines, both with a comparison to the marketplace, but also with just leveraging the investment that the state has made in this case, in the University of West Georgia, for us to quickly elevate some of that delta between where we should be and where we are. We're going to continue to try to address that in an incremental fashion. Compensation matters. It is not the only thing that matters, but it always matters because, let's be clear, these are jobs. And there are certain attributes of jobs that we want to make certain that we are paying close attention to, and that is one. And it's a tough one when you're a state institution, especially when we are in a time with some financial challenges. But I share all of that with you because we are leveraging those $5,000 salary increases to try to reposition the university overall. Second, to move away from the Board of Regents, we had talked about in the meeting previously, and I included in my notes during the last meeting while I was traveling, about sharing the data from one of the surveys that has been administered this year. It was a survey that was done by a third-party research firm in service to our contract with Crawford Strategy, which is our integrated marketing and communication firm. At the beginning of any engagement with an integrated marketing communications firm, we always do baseline survey data to try to understand exactly what is the problem that needs to be solved. I say that because any marketing communications firm is going to focus in on, are we trying to solve a reputational problem, i.e. something has gone wrong? And, you know, in the case, I'll use Will Smith in this case. You know, he has some reputational complexity that you know, he's created for himself over the last few weeks. I can only posit that he probably has some communication professionals that are working on a strategy to correct that. Well, it's not different with organizations or universities. Some brands have longevity. Some brands have no space in the marketplace. And with public universities, that's often the case. So we, as a regional comprehensive university, often live in the shadows of larger brands in the state of Georgia that can easily be applied to UGA and Georgia Tech. Both of them have brands that extend beyond the boundaries of the state. Most universities like to claim that they have reputations that extend beyond the boundaries of the state or their service area or whatnot. But we go in and we find out to what degree that is true. For this survey, it gave us some baseline data, although it only gives us point in time data, and what we need in terms of data for, you know, for performance is something more frequent. I'll talk about that in a few minutes. Data should be useful, usable, and used. If it is not all of those three things, then I'm not sure what we're doing with it. So we're going to do, I'll give you a high-level summary of what the research firm found in that particular survey, and then we'll speak to less point-in-time data and something more dynamic that we can do moving forward. So this really measured 5 audiences. It was students, current students, prospective students, employees, alumni, and community, defined in different ways for each. Those big buckets are really, you're a current student because you're enrolled. If you're not enrolled, you're not a current student. If you're a prospective student, you were somewhere in the funnel, which is a really difficult one to get at. Because we have lots of students who apply for college who aren't necessarily intending on going to that university, but they're counted as a prospective student. In particular, what was a prospective student for the University of West Georgia during fall of 2021, like most universities across the country, was variable and not as stable, since we know that our incoming classes are changing quite a bit. From a qualitative perspective, high-level returns from that survey are really things that I think will be common perceptions for many of the people in this meeting. Student center focus that generally resonated across stakeholder groups. All of those groups were seeking a stronger relationship to the university. None of the stakeholder groups had a great way of telling the University of West Georgia story. It was a struggle to kind of articulate what we were, and there's some corresponding data to back that up as well that came from another activity. As many of you know, for most students who attend a tour at the university, being here is the thing that sells them. And that's not true for every single institution, but we have considerable evidence over a number of years that that's been true for West Georgia. As of late, we've also gotten considerable evidence that our customer service in terms of prospective students and families who come to the university and are engaged outpaces other institutions. That's certainly a goal, and certainly something that we've been very focused on in terms of service, because we are in a comparative marketplace, especially as the things like testing requirements are variable in other states. We know that there are many applicants in states that are granting out-of-state tuition waivers to Georgia students that they're seeing increases in applications from those prospective Georgia students, and we link a lot of that back to the testing requirement. Well, we only have a certain amount of control over that. We certainly don't have it locally because that policy comes from the Board of Regents. So we have to control the things we can control, and experiences like tours and service touch points matter. The resources available to students generally were viewed positively. The overall experience was viewed generally positively, with many specifically citing helpful faculty and staff. The on-campus social experience was viewed as not robust, but offering opportunities for students to connect and engage. And the notion of Carrollton being a small town, at least in consideration of the main campus, bear in mind that that survey went to prospective students in all modalities. The response rates really went back to those who were a little more connected to campus, and the small town feel of Carrollton was cited as an asset, generally speaking, of course, not by all. And the experience of current students in the attempts to optimize their experience were also derived from that. Quantitatively, we know that the local community is generally positive, but lacking connection. Alumni were, while a tremendous number of our alumni live within 100 miles of the University of West Georgia, they did not feel as engaged as some of those other stakeholders. There's mixed feedback from employees, which is not surprising, quite frankly, having done these at the same thing at other universities. We always get mixed feedback from employees. However, we're also noting that it's been a rough 2 years. We've gotten a lot of mixed feedback from employees during that period. And then rallying points for the institution across all stakeholder groups were student centrism and the student-centric experience, the feeling both with the people and the place that this is home, and preparing students for the future being a priority for the university. Overall, this survey answered one question for us, and we also have an engagement, a strategic enrollment management engagement that with Carnegie that really brought this home. So I'm going to mix those two pieces of data together. The one thing that was the glaring takeaway is the fact that people know the University of West Georgia is here, but knowing that it is here and being able to say it's good at X, I know, why we're connected to it. It's that telling of the story that was just lacking. There's a lot of awareness, but not a lot of depth. We're kind of in terms of awareness, let's call it a mile wide and an inch deep. So the challenge really comes to us to how do we, in a competitive marketplace where everybody has lots of things to pay attention to, how do we direct our marketing and communications efforts toward making certain that we can deepen people's understanding of the value proposition of the University of West Georgia. Now, this is point in time survey. So anytime you do a discovery survey with an integrated marketing and communications firm, we wait a couple of years before we conduct the same type of survey with the same stakeholder groups. Although we've never gotten the same, you don't get the exact same people, right? So you're still getting random samples 2 years later. But that gives us a comparison as a person receiving service from a vendor, in this case, Crawford Strategy, to see how much we've moved the needle in those same buckets over the course of 24 months as we allowed integrated marketing and communication strategy to take hold, which just takes time. But we need more urgent information than that. And as we've been going through the processes of implementing new strategy, part of that is Net Promoter Score. Net Promoter Score is a quantitative and often qualitative data point that we can collect frequently, and we're able to get, not, I wouldn't say immediate feedback, but we're able to test the consciousness of the body in relationship to the overall reputation of the university, kind of the positive energy and positive perceptions that surround it. So we are going to be putting in place, and I mean, a very short course, Studer Education has been helping us with that implementation. The implementation of very brief Net Promoter Score linked survey tools that we'll use in lots of different contexts. And that's data that, as I've been talking to other team members at the university, we need to prepare in summary format and then get out, especially to employees. And I say that because when we are doing well, you all need to know exactly where we're doing well in the minds of others, just like we're doing poorly. You all need to know when we're not being perceived the way we might perceive ourselves. I will say that both in this survey from October and the surveys that I've done in the past in terms of discovery sessions, employees are often the ones who are the least likely to promote the institution for where they work. And that ends up working against us. Net Promoter Score gives us something to work with. Again, it becomes data that is useful, usable, and used because of its frequency. Now we have to couple that with a second instrument that has been in the works, and I know a number of different individuals at the university have been working on the team to provide that, and that's the Student Experience Survey. This data and every other piece of data that we get back tells us that us focusing in on students, that student centrism that comes along with the University of West Georgia, is our superpower. That is the thing that's going to make or break us. But to what degree do we deliver on that student experience? So we're aligning the Student Experience Survey with exactly what we know is important and is outlined in the strategic plan, and that's the big six. If those are the things that are important to college graduates, we have to make certain that they are aligning with students' current experience, bearing in mind that our student population changes every single semester for two reasons. One, we get new students and some leave, and two, because the people that we are teaching and mentoring change themselves. So that Net Promoter Score survey instrument, which we can inject into lots and lots of different contexts and pull out data, will be coupled with targeted and regular student experience survey. So the plan is to be able to provide that in a consistent, summarized fashion, so that you're getting that data delivery probably every 90 days, right? And that gives us a chance to kind of get the analytics and then put them in a format where they can be used by everyone. And that wouldn't mean they're just kind of released all over the university. For instance, if we got a lot of data on the Momentum Center or on UWG athletics or on theater, 2 shows in 90 days, and we were able to get to get a data bank on those particular contexts, then we'd be able to share that out in a standard fashion, or what would be a standard fashion for the University of West Georgia, with those who are delivering on those experiences, right? So they have data that actually can be used. We will continue to gather data in that fashion. What we just have to get good at is the useful, usable, and used piece. And that's what we are working through right now. So know that I have a high-level written summary of this particular data and the planning that I just outlined for you, being prepared so that I can distribute that to Faculty Senate. My hope is in short course. And then we're going to try to copy that same format so that we can standardize it at the university and continue to evolve those processes. It is important that we are keeping up with the perceptions of those to which we are in service. I know that I have just a couple more things I wanted to make sure that I shared, and my apologies for the length of my remarks, but I did want to pass along before you hand it over to the provost. One, I shared a pretty significant enrollment report last week or last month to you to try to articulate the priorities and approach. I'm going to be doing that again because that approach is always evolving, especially with things like opening up border state waivers. It's important for us to, while we don't want to share out publicly all of the secret sauce, and I say that because we're in a highly competitive environment. I say that because, again, I'm going to reiterate to everybody, we have a lot of universities in the United States that are trying to stay alive. And when you try to stay alive, you're willing to go and engage in activities that might not be regular. And that's why it's important for us when we share out enrollment strategy and the like, that we do that in the right ways so that it also allows us to be competitive in the marketplace. But I'm going to continue to share out that type of summary. And my plan is to do that in a written fashion. I thought that was probably more effective than delivering that information orally. Three last things: legislative session is over, and you I think have seen all of the results of that. None of the higher education legislation moved forward outside of conceptualization. Except for the budget, which I will note was the best budget for higher education that I've seen in any state at any time. I say that because one of the things that we have to make certain that we really account for is the fact that the governor of the state of Georgia insisted and budgeted for us to eliminate special institutional fee. During the financial crisis, and again, I wasn't here, so I may have my dates a little bit wrong. During the financial crisis, as a result of the financial crisis, there were a number of things that were cut out of universities' ability to collect. Revenue went down, expenses don't stop going up, and special institutional fee was a result. It's a fee that students pay every single semester as a catch-all. It doesn't go to a particular lab, or it's not linked to a particular course or activity. It's just the special institutional fee. For the University of West Georgia, that fee was just under $200 every semester. Well, the governor insisted that be removed, and provided the university system of Georgia enough state funding to increase state funding substantially and decrease that expense to students. So we are going to be held harmless as a result of the legislature's action, but every student at the University of West Georgia is about to experience a savings in their contribution to their own education. That is a huge, huge takeaway from that legislative session. One other note that I would I want to emphasize is the Speaker of the House had really pushed the Mental Health Parity Act. There's a feature in that Mental Health Parity Act where that specifically focused on localized law enforcement and the like. And I want to highlight that because we're contributing to that work, and the basis for some of that was Carrollton, Georgia. Mental health resources are more important now than they ever have been in the world. And we're certainly more aware of them now than we ever have been in the world. To have a state that passes a piece of legislation that specifically focuses on how we can make communities better and get more resources into communities is a really monumental accomplishment. I'm grateful to Speaker Ralston for his focus on it, governor's support of it, and the like. But there is a particular component of that that's notable. In Carrollton, Georgia, we have a police unit that has a trained paramedic, dually trained police officer in one person, who travels with a mental health professional with an expertise in crisis intervention. For those of you who know law enforcement and how law enforcement encounters go, there are a lot of mental health issues that law enforcement face. So having resources, and I'll give you kind of a general number, and this is not a statistical facts, just let's say most encounters have some sort of mental health distress, right? Outside of perhaps traffic stops. Well, the tools that law enforcement has had to use for de-escalation and the like were vastly different than what a mental health professional would use. And I was talking to some law enforcement in Carrollton recently, and I said, since you've implemented that unit, how many times are you having a uncomfortable encounter with somebody, or the encounter results in an arrest since you have implemented this unit where a crisis intervention specialist is going along? And they said probably half, maybe 40% of those encounters result in an arrest. I said, if you didn't have that unit, how many of the encounters would have resulted in arrest? And the answer was 90 to 100%. The legislation that was really led by the Speaker of the House was trying to change so that communities throughout the state of Georgia have those types of resources. Mental health advocates of Carroll County, in partnership with the city and in partnership with the county, are adding a second unit right now. And we are activating some of our intellectual capital and resources at the university to be part of that, because we are part of the city. And many of those calls are with students of the University of West Georgia. But that is a highlight of some of the advancements that have come from this legislative session, and so many of the kind of the other pieces that I know have been points of discussion did not advance at all. I'll end with just three reminders. One, I am giving a university address that talks about the future next Wednesday, April 20th, I believe at 3:00. I'd certainly welcome all of you to be there. Second, we have May 12th, Celebrate West event, which I'm looking forward to. We've had a great team of people throughout the university who've been building that experience so that we can gather together as a university community and engage in employee recognition in the right ways, and hopefully with great weather. And then finally, we have commencement. On May 14th, we're going to be holding commencement 3 times that day, 9, 1, and 5, I believe. And that makes it so that no student has to have any number of tickets. They can bring everybody who loves them and wants to support them. And each time it fills the Coliseum. I would encourage all of you to be present for that too, because there is no better occasion than commencement in my view. With that, I'll end my remarks. I'll hand it back to you, Dr. Williams, and to the provost.
Thank you, Dr. Kelly. And I very much appreciate those remarks, and of course also appreciate your offer of written summary of the enrollment strategy and more information on the surveys in the future. So thank you for all of that. We'll look forward to continue conversations. So the floor is open. I'll shift to the provost report now, and then we will have Q&A following the provost remarks. So Dr. Preston, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Dr. Williams. Good afternoon, everybody, and happy spring. I know we're past spring break, but we've got delightful spring weather outside. I hope you all have been able to enjoy some of that this week and look forward to a fantastic weekend. Got all your planting in, because I think we're in for some rain over the weekend. So hopefully that will rejuvenate everything there. I've got a couple of updates and just want to celebrate some of the fantastic work that our faculty and staff are doing in academic affairs. I'll start with some leadership updates. As you all have seen, updates, appreciate Dr. Smith and the work she's done in College of Education, serving as interim dean. Happy to say that we will have Dr. Mike Dishman joining us as the Dean of the College of Education starting June 1st. So again, fantastic work that Dr. Smith has done in the last year, and I commend her for the achievements. Whenever we have an interim, we say we need to keep moving forward. You're not just maintaining, but you're continuing to lead, and Dr. Smith has done that fantastically in the past year. Also want to thank Meg Pearson for her work. As you've seen the announcement, she is heading on to SUNY Plattsville, and so University College will be led by interim dean Karen Owen. Thank her for stepping up and serving and continuing to advance University College. You saw in the president's message this morning, but I want to highlight them, the 2 points of note, in particular, the Bluestone support in the School of Comm, Film, and Media. Alum Amanda Lucy has generously provided support, and Bluestone is one of these programs that really provides distinction for West Georgia and the students that are working there, connecting them to industry. And that's absolutely fantastic. Really appreciate that support and all of the work that everyone put into securing that gift. Also, the Townsend received its first endowment, the Michael Steed Endowment for Performing Arts. This is a fantastic achievement, and I think that this points to the richness of performing arts at West Georgia and the reason why we'd like Townsend aligned within academic affairs. I've had a number of conversations with Robert and with various leaders in CACSE about connecting our student experience in Townsend and having that be the nexus for performing arts and increasing the number of performances. I'm excited to say, with some additional resourcing, Townsend's going to be able to get back to pre-pandemic levels of performances, and encourage everyone to keep that on your radar and come out and experience the wonderful performances there, both of our own faculty and students, as well as external performances coming in. Kind of continuing on in some updates, want to point out the Chief Wellness Officer, Bridget Stewart, making that transition. And there are all kinds of opportunities. You heard Dr. Kelly talking about holistic wellness and so many points of wellness that matter to people. And Bridget is doing a fantastic job of that. We've got a couple of changes in how we are connecting our students with counseling services, as well as other wellness initiatives from the Center for Economic Education and Financial Literacy, and what Kim Holder's doing there with financial wellness to counseling service and physical wellness. These are fantastic things, and it points to the wellness officer not as a separate standalone, but really infused throughout the life of all of our students, faculty, and staff, connecting the dots across the campuses and the institution. Along similar lines, Dr. Gakir Parker is kind of working with faculty and the Ed Abroad Advisory Council to restart our Ed Abroad. Coming out of the pandemic, there are increased challenges there from a resourcing and a planning perspective and risk management. And I appreciate all of the work of those faculty that are working with Dr. Gakir Parker on bringing Ed Abroad experience, bringing our students to the world, and then also some new things coming forward in the next academic year about creating global experiences and perspectives here at West Georgia on our campuses. I think over the spring break, we had a study abroad that RCOB led to Italy, and that went really well. And I'm really excited to see all of the new student activities and the international engagement that we're having there. Last Friday, a week ago, I had the great pleasure of traipsing through the mud with Dr. Lars. Happy to say that we have an on-site archaeological opportunity for our students. So you don't have to study abroad. You don't have to go hundreds of miles away to have great experiences. We've got them, of course, right here on the Carrollton campus. And this is going to be a archaeology site right there on the north side of campus near the river, where students and faculty are going to be working through the month of June, bringing artifacts back into the lab in July. And that's just another example of some fantastic things that you can get at West Georgia. And Dr. Lars can correct me, but I believe that this is the only on-campus archaeology site in the state of Georgia. So that's yet another point of distinction and fantastic work of our faculty for locating that and creating that experience for our students. Echoing some of the comments that Dr. Kelly provided, had the opportunity to be at the USG Board of Regents meeting earlier this week and saw our Masters of Science in Integrative Health and Wellness approved by the board. So congrats to Brian Mosier and College of Ed and those that worked on that. This is going to be a great opportunity, embedded certification within this master's. So students who are graduating are going to be well positioned and qualified for fantastic jobs in health and wellness. And that ties in with West Georgia's just overall wellness initiatives. Specifically on the cost of living adjustment for 5K, I know that there was a question that we addressed in the Faculty Senate Budget Committee this morning, but I'd like to emphasize it here that still working on the final details about, does that 5K apply towards our percentage of summer salary this upcoming year? I'm sure that's of great interest to faculty in that, is that COLA going to be implemented for summer 22, or is there going to be a delay? And indication, and what I'm advocating for is that we utilize the increased salary as the basis for our summer payment. And that's going to pay our faculty more, but it's an investment that the university is making, increasing that cost basis to deliver courses in summer, but it aligns well with the USG intention. And I hope that people will appreciate that. More details next week on finalizing that. In our engagement with the University System of Georgia as well, I know I've talked about this earlier this semester, but I'd like to reemphasize our academic roadmap for the upcoming year was well received. And we've got some fantastic programs in the coming year that will be emphasizing. These are very tied to workforce needs in the state of Georgia, connecting our students and giving them options for studies in high demand areas, great salaries, and the ability for them to meet industry needs here in the state. So appreciate all the work that faculty are doing, coordinating with your chairs and your deans on these upcoming academic programs, and look forward to representing those at board meetings in the fall, and then kicking those off after SAC COC review for a fall 23 start. At the same time, we're also addressing, and I know last month we shared the credit hour production reports that I've continued to present to Faculty Senate Budget Committee and Faculty Senate. The updated version of that was shared in March, and had a good conversation with the Faculty Senate Budget Committee this morning about the impact on that, the areas of growth and areas in decline, and all of the nuances that go in that. I will address a specific question that's come up about XIDS and some other courses that might not have the prefix of mapping to faculty and what they're specifically teaching, and how faculty get credit for that in their workload. This credit hour production report that I shared last month is merely to focus our attention on enrollment areas rather than workload areas. In particular, with our approach of infinite wait list, and my message to the deans that whenever we have demand, we can add new sections and hire adjunct part-time faculty to cover those sections, or pay a stipend above what faculty are currently earning on a full workload. The credit hour decline that we are receiving, or that we are perceiving, is not a result of students not being able to get into sections. We've solved that this academic year using waitlist and additional sections. So the declines that you're seeing are based on market shift and overall enrollment, in particular in gen ed courses. As far as the workload, that's a different perspective altogether. So if you're teaching an XIDS course or an honors course or something else without that prefix that maps to your particular discipline, I commend you for that, and that's fantastic. We certainly want these rich experiences for our students in these XIDS and honors, and that's not an or, right? You're not teaching an honors instead of, but that vacancy that's created when you're teaching something else like XIDS or an honors course or something else, that vacancy in course can be filled with a part-time or someone else stepping in to teach that section. So I did want to clarify that and make sure that as we're looking at these credit hour trends, the inhibiting factor should not be our teaching ability, that we are solving that in different ways. Also related to working with the USG, as you know, for this past year, the post-tenure review and P&T updates, I want to commend Drs. Urban and Akins for leading that group, and the Faculty Development Committee and all of the liaisons who have been working on that. I know that Dr. Urban presented a update on that at the Faculty Senate last month, and I have submitted that for consideration and input from the system office. I'd love to get to a formal vote through the process of shared governance here at West Georgia as soon as possible, but did want the system office to make sure that there were no non-starters there before we go through our official process. We should have feedback relatively soon, and I think we'll be working with Faculty Senate for a meeting in May, June to finalize that. But really appreciate all the work that people have done. We have hit that target that the system has asked us to, and we are in a good position to meet that expectation. And again, I'll reinforce that with respect to student success and the work that our faculty are doing to contribute to that, I commend folks in really leaning into that. But I'll also clarify, and I mentioned this in Dean's Council last week, but want it to be very clear to everyone, given that we are changing, when it's finally voted and ratified, we are changing expectations and how people are presenting their promotion and tenure documents. We will have a crossfade of that. It would be unfair for us to impose that, in particular as faculty are putting their materials together right now this summer for consideration in the upcoming cycle. It would be unfair for us to vote these changes in and then immediately expect faculty to demonstrate. Again, I have confidence that they would be able to, but want to give people time. So we've got a 2-year fade-in process before that's going to be fully expected. And your department chairs and deans can certainly work on the details of that once we get to a point where these have been updated. You might have seen it also at the end of the president's message this morning, and it seems a bit far away, but 2024 will be here before we know it. So I'd like to commend the work of folks who are thinking ahead and looking at SAC COC and our on-site visit. We are class of 2024, and we will have our on-site April 1st through 4th in just about 2 years, but there's a lot of work that goes into preparing for that. We just finished Q3 for our strategic blueprint sprints, and all of the details of what people are doing across the university, including academic affairs, is being recorded and updated in our Zytrack system. That will make our self-report and our reporting of all of the things that we do as an institution to SAC COC much easier. So that includes work on our comprehensive analysis of programs. And then now going forward into Q4 this year and beyond into the next academic year, I know that faculty will be working on implementing those recommendations and changes that came out of that comprehensive analysis of program work that you all did. Similarly, we've got a QEP, and I'm not going to steal Dr. Akins' thunder here, but I will say that I'm happy that we've had a broad and inclusive approach to soliciting proposals, reviewing and vetting them, and then finally going through the official recommendations. And I'll let Dr. Akins report on the QEP that has been selected. I want to commend Dr. Kevin Gwaltney and the entire team for helping lead that forward. And I know that we are going to need to put resources towards that. We've got existing workload that can be directed through service towards our QEP. It's kind of an old-fashioned, 10+ year model where institutions would put $1 million and stand up a new department to implement a QEP. The more progressive and modern approach is now to leverage existing resources with some additional, really focusing these QEPs on it's already part of our DNA. So how do we just take what we're already doing well and then take it to that next level, and look forward to the work of the QEP group to implement that and get us to year 0 before that SAC COC visit. A couple more items to share, just looking at just kind of what's going on. I'm going to miss some of these, and we'd be here for the entire afternoon if we went through all of the great activities going on in academic affairs, but I will highlight a few. We've just concluded our first academic year with esports at UWG, and I'm happy to say that our varsity team competed at the Peach Belt Conference Championship at the end of last month. Similarly related, we hosted a Careers Beyond the Console event this week on Monday. Industry speakers coming in and talking with the talent, showcasing how students can connect with, and students that are interested in this space can connect with careers beyond just the players, but all of the things that go around that. And I highlight that because it shows the diversity of opportunities that we're creating for students here while they're studying, but also helping to open their minds towards what their careers could be. And no matter what they're studying, how that can land in great jobs and launch their careers, helping students articulate their superpowers, their academic excellence and their academic superpowers into what companies are looking for. We also hosted this past weekend the UWG Hackathon, had 24 participants with 18 mentors and 3 reps from Access Healthcare. This was kicking back a tradition that we've done for a number of years, and was thrilled to see that come on. Also want to commend Drs. Anderson and Kilpatrick last night for hosting the French alumni panel. They had alumni who had graduated either with a minor or a major in French from UWG who are gone and doing great things in their careers, coming and talking with prospective high school students. And I had the great pleasure of joining them for a few moments and seeing just the energy and that excitement of our alumni reaching back and talking about what West Georgia really equipped them to do and their successes in their careers, and inspiring potential students to come to West Georgia based on that. So fantastic event. Wednesday, Dr. Peterson hosted the Spark Celebration Banquet. This is a great outreach that combines College of Ed students who are studying with us with Spark participants, really loving on each other and being true and open with each other, and helping them get through areas of personal crisis and becoming better every day. And that's just another example of West Georgia connecting with the external community and being in service. A couple of items that looking forward to, encourage everybody, even if the weather's no good, we've got an alternate venue. So thank Dr. Geyer for hosting the Sunbelt Jazz Festival this Saturday. Hope everybody can come out and enjoy some fantastic performances and celebrate culture and arts here at West Georgia. President's mentioned his address on April 20th. Also the Employee Recognition Day in May, and commencement on May 14th. Looking forward to celebrating all of our students who are crossing that stage and turning the tassel. They get to that milestone because of the work of our faculty and staff, and so appreciate the opportunity to come together and celebrate each one of those graduates. And I love the energy. It's the best days of the year. So looking forward to celebrating that with you. And final comment, you've seen the announcements. I look forward to having the general faculty meeting on April 29th. So 2 weeks from today. We'll do that in the ballroom starting at 2 o'clock. So thank you for the time to give you some updates and celebrate some of the great wins in academic affairs. Turn it back over to you, Dr. Williams.
Thank you, Dr. Preston. I appreciate that. Dr. Akins, if you'd like to give us a report as the Vice Provost, you're welcome to do so. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Dr. Williams.
Hard time listening to Akins.
I was
Dr.
muted.
Akins, you're muted.
I unmuted myself. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Wonderful. Good afternoon to everybody. And I have one very short report. Would like to share that a recent announcement was published in WorkWest about the QEP project that was selected for our quality enhancement planning. It is the experiential learning and career exploration at the University of West Georgia. Once again, I would like to thank the team that selected the project, the feedback, everyone who provided feedback to the Faculty Senate Executive Committee's survey. As a reminder, we will be having a second team who will be working on the implementation part of the project. Again, congratulations to the authors of that project that was selected for UWG's QEP, Experiential Learning and Career Exploration. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Dr. Akins. So the floor is open for questions for President, Provost, Vice Provost. I do have a few pre-submitted questions that I'll be going through, but you're also welcome to raise your hand and join the queue or submit questions via the chat feature. So President Kelly, my first question, actually two people asked about this, so I think it's on some people's minds. There was a request for an update on the renovations to the humanities building. And so the question is it still on schedule to be completed by the fall of 2023? And could you give us an update on where things stand now, what the various phases of renovation might be? And also there's a question about the funding. How is all of this being funded?
Yeah, it's a great question. That's a great question. I can answer almost all of that. Some of it we're going to have to be waiting on. So let's take one step back. Everything in America has gone up in price. In particular, construction costs have gone up. If you were at the Board of Regents meeting earlier this week, I believe there were 12 projects that needed to find additional means or scaling back in order to move forward. All of those were fully funded by the state, but the costs are just crazy right now because of supply chain. I mean, I don't remember the numbers, but it's like steel's up 300%, and there's a lot of different materials and they take forever to get here. If we, we've been struggling ordering certain parts that the timeline for the part getting here is 12 months. When in the world we used to live in, that never would have been the case. So I give you that as the backdrop. Now let's talk about humanities specifically. So and I'll mix that with USG policy. Anytime we have a fully funded renovation project like that or a new build project, and we see price escalation, then that requires us to go into a stage called value engineering. Humanities is not threatened at this time to stop. Let me start with that. The timeline, I can't tell you about specifically. I've got some mixed information on that. It was reported to me some time ago, a number of weeks ago, that we were probably seeing a very significant price escalation in the cost of humanities. Now that's a $30 million project all told, which includes power plant for the academic quad and coolant piping and a lot of infrastructure. But it's also a critical component of our daily activities for our academic work, specifically related to art and music for the University of West Georgia, along with a host of other purposes, but specialized space for those two areas. That price escalation was incredibly high, in excess of $4 million. So that triggered value engineering. That's a process that the USG participates in, along with architects and engineers. And we talked about the things that, where can we produce savings that does not affect the final outcome in meaningful ways. And some of that is, well, we're just going to have to delay getting X. And for other projects, not humanities, but for other projects in the state, that meant scaling back the project significantly. Imagine if we were building a new humanities building and not doing a renovation. We'd be in a situation where we might go, well, the building has to be a quarter smaller. Well, that is not a situation we wanted to get into, and it's a little difficult on a deck-to-deck renovation. So we have worked to that problem, finished the value engineering. That was all based around not impacting the space that was used by students and faculty in particular. That was the protection point, to make certain that the space was going to first have all of those pieces in place that made it Class A, world-class space for faculty and students. And second, to make sure that it remained a beautiful building as an end outcome. But we were able to find some cost savings. I have submitted that to the chancellor. So the process now, and we have a lot of support at the board level for this as of now, is that will go through an analysis period with the board. We are trying to get it onto the May board agenda. That has not been decided yet, primarily because they just haven't finished that yet, nor is that process finished. And if we get it on the May board agenda, and we have been able to, can't start that process until we identified our ability to fund that, and we have, we were able to, my hope is that if we, and we have agreement from the architects and the construction firm, if we get approval for that on the May agenda, and Dr. Preston, correct me if I'm wrong, then we should be holding to essentially the same time. Probably a little less liberal move-in, but essentially the same timeline. If we do not get that on the May agenda, that timeline may move. It's really up to the construction company telling us what is possible. Some of the things we did do in advance is made certain that we put in orders for certain things that we knew had long timelines. And the construction company asks the state of Georgia for permission to do that on behalf of the project. We have executed those. I think that answers that question in full. I think I got to each of the parts.
Yes, thank you. That was very detailed. I appreciate that. So I have a follow-up question regarding the survey summary that you presented. You mentioned that employee feedback was sort of mixed, I think, in your words. What were the specific takeaways from the employee feedback? What would you say the leading concerns were?
What were the leading concerns? One, I'll share that with you as a comparative study. So if you ask current students about their overall satisfaction rate with the University of West Georgia, you would have 81% of current students would fall into the satisfied or above, right? Knowing that, you have a category in there that's, I don't have an opinion. If you did the same thing with employees, it would be about 45%. If you added in the, I don't have an opinion on that, we're at 60% or 55%. The takeaways, bear in mind, this survey is intended to mark attitudes, kind of toward the image or the conception of the institution. So the takeaways were mixed. I mean, you have some anxiety in there, and there's some dissatisfaction, and then that is mixed with extreme satisfaction and jubilation. So that's why I say it's mixed. Bear in mind that for every single, and I would also note that that's not atypical. That is not, UWG doesn't stand out in that regard. Having executed a very similar survey at multiple institutions, we all work here. that is a different way of being serviced by the university, but also serving the university than if you're a student, a prospective student, or community member or alum. For instance, as an academic institution, if you want the overall value of the University of West Georgia as an academic institution, current students and prospective students go up to the 80s and the 90s in us being valued as an academic institution. The community is up in 96%. But who are the two lowest scoring groups? Alumni, which maybe 10% of them give the highest rank to their university, and then the next segment, about 68% of them go to a category 2 on a 5-point Likert scale. Well, employees would give it a 23% in the highest category, and then 47 in number 2. But it's not the overwhelming result that a prospective student or a current student has. Now that tells us something about our both kind of about the experience that we provide, because alumni are giving us that feedback, right? But it also tells us about those of us who are providing it. So when I say it's mixed, that is not mixed is good. When we have complexity like that, we want to dig into that, because it's certainly something that we have to take responsibility for, all of us in our different roles at the university. We want to make sure that we are advocates for our university, which is why we'll do Net Promoter Score. And we'll segment that out so we can say, hey, the community looks at us and they give us a Net Promoter Score that exceeds the national average by far. The national average is I believe it's 67 is a national average Net Promoter Score. And we've done that in Carroll County. And Carroll County scores like 85%. I mean, well beyond the excitement about people in Carroll County, about Carroll County, exceeds that of Gwinnett, right? But if we start to segment that out and we find that there's specific areas or specific stakeholders where that score is different, then we get a chance to go, okay, so there's complexity there. There's some disconnect. And for us, I believe that that if I had to, this is just point in time data. I don't like point in time data because it's not regular enough, right? And it captures realities that might not exist anymore. And quite frankly, over the last 2 years, I think pandemic time is like twice the time. So 6 months ago seems like a year ago, and a year ago seems like 10 for many people. But there is a lot of complexity in the relationship to work, the relationship to work, relationship to workplace, relationship to mission. Having spent a lot of time with a lot of the presidents and university leaders over the last couple of months and this past week, in many ways, I think that captures where we're at in higher education. And it is complexity that we have to work through. But the goal here, for this survey data, it's really about reputation. It's how is that translating into advocacy? Because we can just as easily, in a competitive atmosphere like higher education right now, I think we can talk ourselves out of success. And I don't mean that as an internal conversation. I mean that as an advocacy conversation. I was talking to a group of students about this exact same data this morning. Could you imagine if somebody goes, so you've got a family and you go, oh yeah, they're terrible. My kids are terrible. I don't like my spouse, right? That, and you've heard people do that. Well, that allows us to arrive at a perception. So we've got work to do. We've got work to do internally, both with how we operate, what our relationship to work is. And I know as president, I certainly take any of those data points and I go, how do we turn those into action that produces outcomes? And we've made a lot of those changes and made a lot of those efforts and we'll continue to. But then we have to, and as I said when I presented it first time, we've got to get that data into other people's hands too, in ways that's going to allow them to use it. And that's why I like Net Promoter Score. We like Student Experience Survey because we can see our gaps and we can see our successes, and we see them in a more fluid environment. So it's more dynamic data that's, for lack of a better term, simply more usable.
Yeah. Well, thanks. So as you're thinking about translating that data point, which admittedly is just, as you said, one data point, but that data point into action in ways that affect the faculty, what are some things that you think we as faculty might expect as far as action items over the next few months?
I think you're getting one. I think we're doing that all of the time, right? We're in a very dynamic environment. So there is change and churn and evolution all of the time. So it's not like a what's in the bag, and then we pull it out of the bag. Two, I'm going to highlight a number of those things next week. And I'm going to save those for next week, if you don't mind, so I can curate them a little bit more. But it really speaks to what is the outcome that we're trying to produce. Look at, the circumstances for work have changed. The circumstances for working at a university have changed. I'll tell you, young Professor Kelly would, have a very different attitude because of the change in circumstances than I did at the time that I was doing the work. I mean, so it's us working through a very much a changing world and try to match up what we are supposed to produce as a university and what we need to do to support and advance employees so that they are able to fulfill that mission. And in higher education, we haven't been doing that work for a long time. We haven't been spending a lot of time evolving the way other industries have been forced to because of economic reasons. We haven't been forced to, and now we're being forced to. So for us, it's answering that question every day. Again, I would say I'll highlight some of those next week, but I'll give you one that's a pretty simple one, and it goes back to a question I was asked very early in my service here, and a question that I've been asked at every university that I've had the opportunity to lead, and that's, what about the mental health resources for faculty and staff, right? Now, I understand that question in the midst of the last 2 years very well, because we have been living in a world with incredible anxiety and change and uncertainty, and for a lot of reasons, and people's lives have changed fundamentally. But we were asked that question way before the pandemic. I mean, I remember sitting with a faculty member in South Carolina who brought that question up in a faculty senate meeting. And, everything was right in the world, seemingly, but not in that individual's world. And we sat down, we talked about that so that we could see if we couldn't get more resources. I'm going to tell you it was very difficult to reshape institutions around providing those types of resources and support, because even from my position, I couldn't get others who I needed to support that as important, Here, we've been able to bring some new dimensions to that. Chief Wellness Officer and the work that Bridget Stewart's doing to try to align all of our resources around an environment that really focuses on wellness, I think is a huge contributor to that, Dr. Williams. I think that is a very different approach than has been taken at universities. Universities didn't say that was their business. They might have said it was their business for students, and we might have, kind of chipped around the edges of it with walking programs and good positive efforts, but not that deep. Now I look at it from a presidential perspective, and I say, we have to figure out ways to do work that does put wellness first. And that means wellness in between employees, for individual employees, for units, because there's a lot of dimensions to that. You might be really satisfied and healthy in one dimension of your life and not so much in the other. And that's what I think Bridget Stewart brings a lot of dimensions to that with her work in the National Institute of Wellness. And as a component of that, we added the Sharpen platform as a resiliency platform to the University of West Georgia. And while the initial content really focused on students and building that student resiliency, now we're doing work that does point to employees. Now, I've shared that with other university leaders. I don't know anybody else who's making those types of efforts. I bet you 12 months from now, we'll see a lot, because I think that's part of the expectation of what needs to be delivered by an employer at universities. So I don't have all of the answers, but I am 100% dialed in to trying to find them all of the time. And that changes as the circumstances change. And if we go in a particular direction and it doesn't work, doesn't serve people the way we hoped it would, there's always plenty of directions to go in after that. I'm very comfortable with, plan Y and Z, but we just want to make sure we're getting toward the right outcomes, or at least we die trying.
Yeah. One final question, I guess, that has come in through part of the chat message as a follow-up to the survey. How did the results compare to previous engagement studies at UWG? So I know for a number of years, employees have had various engagement surveys, marketing surveys. You mentioned the inadequacy of point-in-time data, but were you able to look at, say, previous studies over the course of a number of years to gauge the general direction in which we're moving?
No, I read a lot of those before I came in, but they're not the same instrument at all. They were asking totally different things, and I would caution with the word engagement. A lot of the previous survey data, at least I think what you're referring to, was satisfaction data rather than I know the word engagement was used, but this data, this instrument, and this type of survey doesn't speak to the same issues. It's not asking internal issues. It's just asking kind of perceptual issues, which is why you can conduct the same thing 2 years down the road, and you kind of get a good baseline. So this was baseline. I have not gone back. The previous marketing engagement for the University of West Georgia was 10 years long. And we did look at some of that data, but I just don't know how, I don't know if we could draw any conclusions because it was quite a long time ago. I think the last time it was done that way might have been 4 years, really in a fundamental way, like 6 or 7 years before I came here. But there was some sort of update to it, maybe 4 years before. But while it was trying to accomplish the same things, it was using, it's just not data we could trust anymore. Plus the world, again, the world had changed. So we will have, as we move forward, we're trying to use instruments that on specific things, and we will talk about employees' relationship to work surveying moving forward as well. But we're going to gather that data with regularity, right? We just haven't started that. That's not slotted for right now. There's still work being done to get us there.
Thank you. Dr. Preston, there are a few questions that I've received specifically for the provost, I think. So I'll ask a few if we have time. So the first one is about funding for end-of-year purchases. And so the question is, please share if there are funds available for end-of-year purchases. If so, how do you plan to prioritize them, and what is the best way for faculty to request those funds?
Yeah, great question. I just met with the Faculty Senate Budget Committee this morning and reinforced this as well. Just over a year ago, February, we implemented a process by which deans in various units across academic affairs were strategically spending their budgets throughout the year. We were tracking the spend rate on a monthly basis, doing the same this fiscal year in FY22. And so as we announced earlier this semester, the date by which all funds should be spent out of colleges and schools is the end of this month, end of April. So each dean has had 3 months of awareness of that, spending strategically so that we're not kind of last minute buying just to buy, but what is needed. So that's coming together within academic affairs for the month of June, and then it will be centralized further thereafter the goal is to maximize the efficiency and the effectiveness of what we're spending. Anyone that's done this before knows 11th hour, and it's a flurry of a lot of purchases, and it gets pretty chaotic and less than strategic. So anyone who has a need should continue to speak to their dean. We're assembling all of those. We've got some significant investments like we did last year in doing classroom upgrades. So there are similar type projects that Academic Affairs is looking to invest across the institution and maximize the student experience and the support that faculty and staff have. So if there are items that people want, continue to pass those to your department chairs and deans. And then those are going on a priority list that will be purchased before the end of this fiscal year.
Yeah, thank you. There was a question that came in from the chat regarding something that you mentioned regarding the PNT and PTR review. And I know that will be an information item that Dr. Urban is going to talk about later in today's meeting. And so some of this may be answered there. But the question is from Dr. Olivieri, may I ask the provost for more timeline details on the 2-year fade-in process for academic area promotion, tenure review, and annual review changes? And she said, we have a working group in the library, would be grateful to hear expected implementation dates.
Yeah, that's a fantastic point, and thanks for asking. So the USG has asked us to meet a particular deadline for our institutional PNT updates and the PTR updates, and then has given us an extended grace period for the fall term to refine those and implement them with departmental and college and school PNT and PTR guidelines. So the work that I think that you're referring to in the library is specific to how do we take the institutional update and then execute those within updates to our local guidelines. And that's the timeline for that. The expectation is that those will be concluded by the end of the fall term to be, reviewed and then enacted in the future. So since we are not, without any kind of departmental or college or school guidelines, the UWG guidelines are what is in force. So executing at a local level to provide more, I guess, detailed expectations. One example of this might be samples of what does student success, enabling student success, look like in various units. That looks different in the library versus in other academic departments, et cetera. So the expectation is that by the USG timeline, those departmental, college, and school updates will be concluded by this calendar year. And then specifically about the fade-in, if that is the case, then people going up in summer of 23 for review in the AY24 cycle, it makes sense to not expect them, again, similar situation right now. It would be unreasonable for someone going up at the end of AY23 going into AY24 to implement or to demonstrate the effectiveness of what they've done with just a few months notice there. So we're looking at an AY24 cycle, an AY25 cycle. So people putting their packets together in summer of 24 would be the earliest that we would implement that. So that gives people a good nearly 2 years really for, by the university guidelines, and it gives a good 1.5 years for local department, school and college guidelines. I think the way that the FDC has elected, there's really 2 approaches that we could have taken. One is to define the student success element distinctively from service, scholarship, and teaching. The other would be to infuse it within those 3, as we have chosen to do. And the FDC and the working group has done a great job of allowing for flexibility there. So again, I'm confident people will be able to articulate that, but that gives you a timeline, 2 years really based on institutional, and then 1.5 years for the department and college and school.
Thank you. Farouk, I think you have a follow-up, maybe not to this question, but to the previous question about end-of-year purchases.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Dr. Preston, that question about end of year funds was actually mine. And I have a follow-up for it. And you will guess what it will be about. I actually talked about it during your interview trip, and it has to do with instrument maintenance. I see that you're smiling. I am ecstatic for a large variety of reasons, which I will not reveal, that experiential learning has been picked as the QEP. Okay, I'll reveal it. I am one of the 5 authors of that proposal. Now, it turns out that to keep experiential learning going, one needs to have instrumentation that functions. And my chair has been very supportive in the Department of Natural Sciences in taking very precious resources to help repair some instruments, but he simply, Dr. DeLine simply ran out. And so I will approach you through proper channel for a very modest amount of money. And I request that if there are instrumental needs which exist in the natural sciences, music, art, maybe mass comm, please consider them, because if an instrument is down for another further year, it hurts student learning enormously. On the other hand, a modest infusion of a few $1,000s, which is a really small amount of money, could keep a project going. And all of you probably saw the wonderful research presented at Scholars Day. What keeps it going are grants such as SRAP and timely infusion of modest amounts of money to repair instruments. And thank you very much for listening to me for my repeated requests.
Yeah, Dr. Khan, I'm smiling because I appreciate your advocacy. You are consistent, and I say that with sincerity, no sarcasm at all, that I think it's brilliant that you represent so many of our great faculty who see investment in instrumentation not as a tick box for kind of P&T and let's get a few dollars externally, but it's really in investing in the student experience. I will agree with you and then up at one level that we should not have instrumentation down even for days, let alone weeks, because every time a student comes into the lab, every time the student, this would be the equivalent of, not having set prop for a theater production, or the hard drive being out on a computer in a computer lab. We need to, and I think this points to Dr. Kelly's earlier comment that students are coming to universities and the academy with a heightened expectation that we need to meet. I'm a big fan of, yes, my discipline is computing, but I have zero patience when this stuff doesn't work because we have an expectation that this is like power and water. It should just exist. And our labs and our equipment and the experiences that we provide students absolutely need to be first rate. They're coming to us with that expectation, and we need to meet that expectation. So I'm glad for your advocacy. I encourage everyone on the call, and please pass the message on that if you see opportunities for us to do better and to invest in student-centric and areas to enhance our faculty research and service, those are exactly the kinds of things that this end-of-year purchase prioritization is meant to do. It's not to spend it on little things that have little impact. It's to invest in significant ways that are going to have a multiple, many-fold benefit to students. Giving an example of this, if our instrumentation is down in your lab, students aren't going to be able to get the experience they need. They're not going to be able to get the graduate admissions, and they're not going to be able to discuss with potential employers. I mean, I'll point to the newly designated SAP lab that Dr. Pridmore is running. That is a world-class experience that students get, and it's because of that we have students that are connecting with businesses and able to say, I have this experience, I have this quality of my education at West Georgia in ways that distinguish them and allow them to launch their careers and do great things. And then be great alumni that come back and visit and invest in the next generation. So completely agree with you. Look forward to seeing that recommendation, and we will support it whenever possible.
Thank you.
There's a question, I think, that's a follow-up to your discussion of the SCH and how programs are going to be evaluated. And I think for programs that are heavily dependent on gen ed enrollment in particular, some of the faculty in those programs are worried about faculty protection in their program when steep declines in overall enrollment result in steep declines in the program's SCH because of the role they have in the core. So the question is, will you err on the side of faculty protection when dealing with the ramifications of those disturbing changes regarding enrollment? And what would you say to faculty who are worried about their own jobs or the jobs of colleagues in their program, particularly non-tenure track lecturers, but maybe even people on the tenure track who are worried about what might happen if they experience SCH declines as a program because of university enrollment declines?
Yeah, that's an important point, and that's why we've been sharing these data widely. In particular, if it's a momentary blip and it's localized to a year or so, that's one thing. But if you look at that credit hour production, that stacked graph, we have a 33% decline in some of those top areas, right? A summative 33% decline. We absolutely need to address that. First would be, let's hope for and do everything we can for growth. And I think the president's comment towards strategic enrollment management, out-of-state waivers, as well as all of the great things that we're doing to promote West Georgia, moves us in that right direction. But as the market shifts, as students change their interest, then we absolutely need to make adjustments. If it's a gen ed course, right, growth in certain areas, gen ed contributes to all of that. And the messaging that I have shared with the deans and is shared with the Faculty Senate Budget Committee this morning, if we grew by 10,000 credits in an area, I would expect faculty and deans to advocate for additional lines. So if we are declining by 10,000 credits in an area, then we certainly need to address that. There's continuity and there's planning for growth, but the university system holds us accountable in resourcing based on enrollment and based on where students are taking courses, and we need to respond to that.
Could I add one comment to that too? Because when Dr. Preston said the university system holds us accountable, it does. But let's nuance that a little bit more. We can't just be focused when we see data like that on what we might need to cut. We can focus in on what capacity do we have to create something new. We talk about the fact that we've got a lot of intellectual capital inside of this university and so many others. Well, if that's true, then that intellectual capital is capable of more than just whatever it is that we are doing right now. So as we're in a changing economy in this industry, and we are, and bear in mind those general education declines, that is not just linked to University of West Georgia. You're seeing those segments. That's not purely the result of a decline in enrollment. In some cases, it's the same type of student that's coming in. They've just already taken those courses in some other way, and there are a lot of options in the marketplace in the state of Georgia on that front. So we are going to have to be anticipating a changing economy. I'm going to ask everybody in Faculty Senate and well beyond, we have to be focused on what else is it that we can create that creates value for others. Because if we're just going to be paying attention to the decline, when you just pay attention to declines, it becomes Sears. You just keep cutting things out until it disappears, right? And I don't think we're in that situation. I think we have a lot of capacity to provide learning in a wide variety of different ways. We just have to challenge ourselves to understand that if we don't, the economy will catch up for us. And if we're not proactive about it, Board of Regents will make decisions on our behalf. So it's a great conversation to have, but it is a conversation that has to be accompanied with action. I love the conversation about instrumentation, because that's a conversation about how do we make certain that the experience is always valuable and is well beyond the expectations of somebody who just went out of a world-class high school building with fully equipped labs, right? They expect something more. The universities, we have to deliver something more. And that's a challenge to us and for us. to make our own future. So as we're having that conversation, let's keep that component in there. And I will tell you right now, both myself and the provost and every member of the Board of Regents that I have spent a lot of time with, it's 100% open to, putting something out there that hasn't been, necessarily what we've delivered in the past. That we have to have a culture of innovation, and that culture begins with all of us being willing to go and try.
Yeah. If I can also add, fantastic point. And we also have, from a continuity perspective, Dr. Williams, based on the question, building the next. If we do have decline in sections of courses that we need to offer, there is an opportunity also to take that bandwidth that people now have and invest it in improving in certain areas. And I'll commend Dean Pearson and Dean Gagnon in working with me, looking at first-year English and first-year mathematics, and shifting workload and focusing some of our lecturers and senior lecturers in University College to build course shells, to add resources, to improve what we're offering, and leveraging some of this 1 year delta in demand, setting ourselves up for capacity and being able to handle increased capacity in the future. As Dr. Kelly mentioned, it's not just about, well, the numbers are down, and so there's a one-to-one correspondence in making personnel adjustments. It's also how can we improve value and get leverage resources, both financially and personnel, to improve the institution and do things that are going to drive even more interest and more enrollment here.
Yeah, thank you. Last question, I think in view of time, is probably directed at President Kelly. There's a question about the growth in senior administration on campus at a time, particularly when faculty in at least some programs find that their faculty numbers are shrinking. So the question is, faculty on campus are very concerned about the amount of spending happening, specifically in the area of national searches, only to hire people who are local. And then in terms of the number of VPs hired with six-figure salaries. So for faculty who are concerned about the growth of administration at a time that faculty numbers are declining, what could you say to reassure faculty, I guess, that the spending is going in the right direction?
That's it. I love the notion that somehow doing a national search and finding that really talented, smart, capable people live right here in the state of Georgia is an issue. I do not see it that way. I came to Georgia in many ways the same reason why a lot of people go to California. California is the most expensive place in the United States to live. Real estate's out of control. Taxes are high. Everybody goes there because that's where the talent is. That's how I feel about the state of Georgia and the Atlanta metropolitan area. So I'm proud that we have found so many really talented people that are here. One, anytime I do not accept the kind of the growth in senior administration. There's a reconfiguration. There's been a reallocation of resources around putting the right things in place. I have zero regrets about breaking strategic enrollment management off into an area where we can concentrate on the activities that at the end of the day butter the bread of the university. I mean, those are critical pieces, and they were going by the wayside in our previous organization. So we have done a lot of reallocation. We have done a lot of reorganization in that regard. But we have not done a lot of expansion over the last 2 years. Additionally, anytime you do senior administration, so I have to present, anytime we make a move like that, I have to go and present that to my boss and to the board. So I'm held accountable for making certain that every single dollar we spend at the university is spent in an attempt to create the most value possible. There are areas where if I was a faculty member and I was in an area where there was a decline in student credit hour. There's probably not as many faculty members around as there may have been 5 years ago. I've been through that many times, having sat in that same area. In the same moment, the day I got here, I had so much feedback from areas that had consistent growth over the previous 5 years and received no new resources, and making certain that we always achieve that balance of making, being certain to put resources where demand is our first priority. So I resist that notion. I really resist that notion. But at the end of the day, we reorganized and we reallocated because we needed different outcomes. The leadership structure for the University of West Georgia, from my perspective, and it is my responsibility, did not match up to what we needed to achieve outcomes that would allow us to grow and advance the university in fundamental ways. Additionally, we've gone through 2 of the toughest years in the last 100, both in our industry and in America. And the economy of higher education is vastly different. There were also 2 years where our compliance responsibilities have just skyrocketed. It was great for the federal government to invest dollars over the last 2 years with HERF funds and the like. But bear in mind, that's also going to require us to be audited for years to come on that front to be able to manage each of those resources. So this is really not a UWG issue. It's really a how do we organize universities in the USG, and how do we make certain that we're aligning resources in the right way. I believe that we're doing that. Would I love to have millions of more dollars to invest in every unit on campus? Absolutely. It's not the reality of where we are right now. And I say right now because all of the changes that I just referred to are in service to us being in more stable and advancing positions in the future. But it takes time, especially on the enrollment front. You can't change enrollment outlines overnight. They run in cycles, and you have to change your strategy, and then you see the payoff of that down the road. And that's precisely what we're trying to do. Be good stewards with public dollars. So I appreciate the feedback and the perspective. I do not agree with the perspective. I think we are trying to make strategic investments at every level of the university all of the time. And that is a very complex business because we are in a limited resource environment, and we will always be in a limited resource environment. You've heard me say it before. If we had $1 billion in cash sitting in my office, which I would gladly accept on behalf of the University of West Georgia, so that we can go and invest it, it's still going to run out quickly because we have $30 billion worth of expectations. And Dr. Khan said it. I mean, if we were able to, if we say world-class labs, world-class experiential learning, well, that's going to mean it's something other than keeping score. And I remember as a faculty member, we kept score with how many people we had around us on faculty. Well, maybe it's different than that. Maybe it's intellectual capital. And then what tools do we have to unfurl the power of that intellectual capital? That's why I love the question and the concern about instrumentation, because sometimes we're able to accomplish a lot with strategic investments like that, but that's not how we talk about it in higher education. I would encourage everybody to make certain that we're looking at our own units through that perspective, but know that I am looking at it that way and I'm held accountable for it that way all of the time. I'm asking every other leader to do the same thing so that we are, any dollar that's invested, we're trying to get $4 worth of value out of. And the seeming expansion, which is not an expansion, it is a reallocation and a reorganization is in service to us getting results and outcomes that we need to achieve as a university to be successful.
Thank you, President Kelly. Appreciate that. Thank you to all the administrators for your time. I appreciate your answers to the questions. We're going to move on to the first agenda item, which comes from Karen Graffius, chair of UPC. I think UPC had another busy week last week of considering a lot of of the final committee, the final proposals that came in through Curriculog for this year. So thank you for that work. The floor is yours.
All right, thanks, Dan. So first from CAXI, the Department of Art, History, and Philosophy, we have several proposals from the art program. We're going to look at the first two items, Art 211 and Art 215. Those are adding 2 new courses. We're going to look at those as a block. These are 2 courses that are options for students to meet the NASAD requirements for courses in non-Western art. And so that's what those courses will be used for.
Okay, I think we're ready for a vote on those 2 art courses, Art 4211 and 4215. Looks like it passed pretty decisively. Back to you, Karen.
All right, and moving along, we have 3 requests to modify art programs, the Art Education BFA, the Art BFA, and the Art BFA. And that request is the same for all of those programs. And that's to add a 3,000 and a 4,000 level non-Western art history course as part of the degree requirements. And also it's to include the courses that we just approved, having those courses as part of all of those curriculums.
Okay, very good. I think we're ready for a vote. And it passes. Karen?
Okay, moving along, the Philosophy 4386 internship. This is a request to add a new course. This is part of the philosophy program's desire to offer students greater professionalism and experiential learning opportunities.
Okay, we'll launch the poll. And it passes.
Okay. Moving along to the Department of Natural Sciences, there is a request to revise the physics minor. This request is to remove 3 groups from the minor in order to allow students to select any 9 credit hours from the 3,000 and 4,000 level physics and astronomy courses. And this is just going to give the students a few more options in their minor.
Okay, we'll launch the vote on that. And that passes.
Okay, moving along to the Department of Anthropology, Psychology, and Sociology. This is a request to revise the social and behavioral health BS. This is basically the addition to several courses in the program. One of these is Social and Behavioral Health 1101, which was originally an XIDS course, and this course has already been approved. It's also to add Social and Behavioral Health 4000 and 4003. Also to add Political Science 3201 as an option for Area 2B. And also to add 2 anthropology courses at electives in Area 2A.
Okay, I think we're ready for the vote. And that passes.
Okay. Moving along to the Department of English, Film, Languages, and Performing Arts, there is a quest to revise the standalone interdisciplinary certificate in musical theater. This request is just to add 3 theater courses that have a dance component in it to the certificate in order for the students to have more options to complete the dance requirement in the certificate.
Okay, we'll launch the vote. And that passes.
Okay, moving along to RCOB in the Department of Economics. Economics BBA revision request. This request is to remove the hybrid course forecasting and to replace with economics elective. And this allows the program to be fully online.
Okay, we'll launch the vote. And that passes.
Okay, and then from the University College, the Department of Civic Engagement and Public Service, we're going to take all of these additional or these new criminology courses as a block. These are all basically the same request. And this is a request to add these courses as permanent courses to the curriculum rather than as special topics courses.
Okay, I think we're ready for the vote. And it passes.
Not that I've ever seen. I mean, the most contentious vote I've ever.
Cody, your microphone is on.
So sorry.
Okay, back to you, Karen.
Okay, and the next we have two criminology BS requests. These are actually two different requests here, although they're both modifications to the program, but we're going to vote on these at the same time. The first request is to add 6 new courses to allow students in the general concentration to have additional courses to fulfill the police and society area requirements. These 6 courses we have already approved, and we approved those back in October. And the second revision to the program is to students choose courses from 4 areas in the degree. And the request is to add some of the new courses that we just approved today to some of those 4 areas.
Okay, that sounds good. We'll launch the vote on that. And it looks like that passes as well.
Okay, the last thing that we need to vote on is from the Center for Interdisciplinary Studies, and that's a new XIDS course. And this course will be the introduction, will be the introduction course for a new proposed standalone certificate in Latin American, Caribbean, and Latinx studies. That certificate is in the process of going through approval. That's it.
Okay, that sounds good. We'll vote on that item. Looks like that passes as well. And then I think the UPC has 2 information items for us, right?
Yeah. And real quickly, you can see it there on the agenda. The UPC approved 40 undergraduate courses to receive the undergraduate research HIP designation, and that's in addendum 2. And then the UPC also approved the XIDS topics for 22-23, which is in addendum 3. And that's all.
Okay, well, thank you. Substantial work, as usual, on the part of the UPC. So thank you for your excellent work for the year, and definitely appreciate all of it. So now I think we go to the APC. Deanna?
Yes, the first set of items we have are from the College of Education, and the first ones are from the Department of Counseling, Higher Ed, and Speech Language Pathology. The first one is the addition of CEPD 7160, Gender and Sexuality, It's been offered as a special topics course for 2 years, and it's going to be offered again. So this meets with CACREP accreditation standards and satisfies the licensure, professional counseling licensure in some states, including Florida. So they're requesting to add it.
Okay, I think we're ready for a vote on that. That passes, it looks like. So we'll go back to you, Dina.
Okay. The next one is for the addition of 7163 trauma counseling. This currently addresses needs in the curriculum standards and is becoming a need that's important to society and also professional counseling. So they'd like to add this course.
Okay, I think we're ready to launch a vote. And it passes.
The last one for this department is 8195 Special Topics in Professional Counseling Studies. This course would be in addition to the EDD and EDS and Professional Counseling program. There's not currently a Special Topics course for the doctoral level programs, so they want to add that there.
Okay, I think we're ready to launch the vote. And it looks like this passes. So back to you, Dina.
Okay, the next two items we're going to take as a block, and from the Department of Educational Technology and Foundations. It's for the MED and EDS concentrations in instructional technology and school library media. For the MED program, they're reducing the required numbers for the school library media track from 36 to 30 hours. And that way to be more competitive. And to be more competitive and to adhere, they're adding 3 hours to the EDS concentration.
Okay, we'll launch a vote on that. And that passes.
And the next proposal is from the Department of Leadership, Research and School Improvement. It's to modify the post-baccalaureate certificate in data analysis and evaluation methods. In January 22, the sociology program contacted other programs in terms of taking over this certificate program in terms of management due to the lack of faculty interest in the program, and this department stepped up. So the faculty in sociology and leadership have agreed to transfer management of the program over to this department. So that's just modifying it.
Okay, sounds good. We'll launch the vote. And that passes.
All right, the last one for the College of Education is from the Department of Literacy and Special Educations. It's to modify the MED and special education. They're proposing to remove 7765 advanced differentiated instruction from the program plan and replace it with 6500 dyslexia methods and instructional strategies. It will provide students greater knowledge in working with dyslexia and also literacy challenges.
Okay, we'll launch a vote. And this passes.
For the next college we have is the Richards College of Business. The first proposals come from the Department of Management, and we're going to take items A and B as a block. It's for the Georgia Web MBA and the Master of Business Administration and revising the program. One of the things that they're doing with the MBA is they're removing the prerequisites in an attempt to remove barriers and also create consistency. So students will be provided access to what's the MBA math course at no cost, and if they want to update their knowledge, they can do that before classes start. So the modification is the same for both requests.
Okay, I think we're ready for a vote. And that passes.
All right, and the last modification to the Master of Business Administration MBA program is for revisions to the digital marketing concentration.
Okay, we'll launch a vote for that. And that passes.
Okay, and the last item comes from University College from the Department of Civic Engagement and Public Service. We're going to take both items on a block. It's modifying the post-baccalaureate certificates in public management and in nonprofit management and community development. Since the MPA degree has moved 100% online, it makes sense to make both certificate programs online. So the modification is the same.
Okay, we'll vote on that. And that passes. Well, thank you, Nina. Appreciate all of that. We'll now go to the Academic Policies Committee. Jennifer?
Hey everyone, thanks for taking the time with us today. Our first item is the history program request to eliminate the exemption option for history 2111 and 2112. It's my understanding that no one has requested this exam in 20 years, and they do still have the option to take the CLEP exam via our testing center, so there will be no negative impacts to our students. They're just cleaning it up.
Okay, seeing no questions or comments on this, I think we are probably ready for a vote. And that passes.
All right, our next item comes to us from the admissions office. There's a proposal to change some of the admission requirements for dual enrollment students. We're pulling it up on the screen here. The main changes include the addition of the AccuPlacer and RightPlacer as an option for 11th and 12th grade dual enrollment students, and to adjust the GPA, SAT, and ACT requirements to be more in line with our peer institution requirements. Dylan did mention that we're the only institution in our tier who admits 10th grade dual enrollment students, and students must meet the GPA requirement and one of these other testing requirements. The ACT score increased for 10th graders, but I believe everything else was a slight decrease in the cut score for admission.
Okay, well, thank you. I don't see any hands raised, any questions or comments on this either. So I think we're ready for a vote. And this passes.
All right. We have two information items real quick. Our committee did approve the criteria for work-based learning designations for courses, and that is in one of the addenda for this meeting. And also, I'm very happy to report that Brandy Chambliss will serve as the chair of this committee next year.
Yes, we're always excited when someone volunteers to chair a Senate committee, and especially a committee that does as much work as the APC. So thank you for your work this year, Jennifer, and we'll welcome Brandy on board. We're now ready for a report from the FDC. Patrick? You're muted, Patrick.
Sorry about that. Okay, so we're tying into our presentation at the March meeting. This is now in the addendum, our second version, which incorporates feedback from Dr. Preston, as well as feedback from faculty senators at the last Senate meeting, and also separate input or feedback that we've received per email. So there are not a lot of substantive changes in there, but I wanted to share this version with the Senate and the faculty also for the minutes, because that, as Dr. Preston mentioned earlier, is the version that he has endorsed and therefore, or subsequently sent to the Board of Regents. So we're waiting for feedback from the Board of Regents, and hopefully we'll receive that soon. If there are any changes requested from the board, we'll take it back to the FDC, work those out, and hopefully present them to the June, forget what the date is, but the June Faculty Senate meeting for a vote. So that's really all right now.
Okay, well, I know we're in this holding period. We had a lengthy discussion, of course, of this item last month, and probably everyone now knows what to expect. I don't see any hands raised, any questions on this. We're, of course, eagerly awaiting what the USG will say. So thank you, Patrick. Appreciate that. We now go to the FITC, Facilities and Information Technology Committee, and I believe that there is a designee who's going to provide the Senate update from the FITC and present the action item on the faculty communication listserv. Who is?
It's me, Dan.
It's Brandy. Okay, yeah, go ahead.
It's me, Dan. I'm just going to, actually, I'm going to hand it over in just a minute to Philip. I'm hoping he is here. Philip, are you here?
Yes, I am.
Okay, so he's the one that worked on this faculty listserv information. This was actually presented as an information item last month, so we're moving it to an action item now. So I'm going to turn it over, Philip, if you want to go over this information one more time before we vote.
So the idea is to just create a formal place that replaces the old listserv. We came up with the rules. Sorry, I'm finding the rules in my Word doc here. We came up with this, that it would be fall within the purposes of the listserv, which is no politics, no religion, no humor, no satire. It will be moderated by someone who will approve, and then anything off topic will be in a Google group. So anything with policy in the university, anything, you know, if somebody wants to say, hey, what the heck is up with that weird sign on campus, that would be on the Google group, as opposed to sending an email to thousands of people.
Yeah, and the purpose of providing universal access to people with these strict conditions to post would be to, there are many things that might be of interest to people across campus events. Sometimes people have had notices about a retired faculty member passing away, for example, and wanting to notify community. So there are a number of legitimate uses for this listserv, and I appreciate that. There's a question that came in through the private message saying, no humor, who determines that? Meaning, who decides? And I believe it's the moderator. This is a moderated list.
Yes, that would be the moderator, yeah.
So people can decide whether something is of general interest and is part of something that belongs to the category of university communication, or whether it's more in the category of editorial opinion. And if it's the latter, as you said, it moves into the Google group. Any other questions, comments, concerns, anything that people want to raise regarding this listserv proposal before we bring this to a vote? I do not see any hands. The question, who will be the moderator? And I believe the answer is well, go ahead and answer that, Philip.
Right now, I think that's TBD. We were we had some suggestions that it would be someone, we talked about the ombuds office, just someone that would be not biased in any way.
Okay. In the vote, I checked with Yvonne for the language for this a few days ago, and I think the voting language is going to say faculty senate chair, or in parentheses, or other person designated by the FITC. Are you comfortable with that language, or do you want to make a quick modification to that?
Yes,
vote?
yes, that's fine.
Okay.
Yeah, that's perfect.
Okay. So we'll go with that. Any other questions or comments on this before we bring this to the vote? Give it maybe just a couple seconds to see if anyone is typing something in the chat, but I don't see anything. So I think we're probably ready to launch the vote. Looks like it passes by a vote of 33-3. So thank you. And thank you for all of your work on this. I know, or 34-3. I know this was the product of a lot of work over the course of a number of months. So I want to thank your committee for that. We now move to the Rules Committee. Angie.
Okay, the first thing we're going to vote on is a definition for quorum. And the proposed revision is a quorum for the Senate and its committees. And that's the standing committees that we all hear reports from, shall be 50% of the voting membership. Any questions?
Okay. Yeah, so this was something where we had discussed this at some length last month and sent it back to the Rules Committee for revision. And this, of course, is the revised proposal, very stripped down and straightforward. Questions or comments on this before we vote? I do not see any raised hands. So I think we're probably ready for a vote. Okay, looks like it passes pretty decisively. So back to you, Angie.
Okay, the next is to revise the membership on the Facilities and Information Technology Committee. They would like to add a member of the Police Department and the chair of the Staff Advisory Council, which will up their membership from 16 to 18.
Okay, yes, I see a comment
Will they
from
be
Shelley.
voting members?
I would assume so.
And so how many faculty would be on this committee compared to administrators and staff?
Okay. From each of the major academic units.
So that's 7, and then 3 senators.
So that's
10
8.
faculty.
So then
it's 10
5
faculty.
administrators. Yeah.
I mean, we are a faculty senate after all. So it just confuses me when we continually add voting members who are not faculty on committees, but that might just be me.
I can send this back and ask for clarification if they intend them to be voting members.
I know some of the administrators aren't voting members.
Yeah, I think that's generally the case with committees. I mean, in a way, it, as all of you know, it's often a moot point in the way that business is done on a committee, who's a voting member and who's not. But I think, the general assumption with these committees has been that it's useful to keep in touch with all administrators who are relevant, but that the voting should be done by the faculty members. But I suppose this could be a case where we just haven't really clarified this in our bylaws. I know we have at least two senators here from the FITC. We don't have the FITC chair with us, but I don't know if either Brandy or Philip would like to speak. Or actually, Philip's a rep rather than a senator, I think. But Brandy, would you like to speak to this, or Philip, regarding the intention here?
Yeah, this is Brandy. I just typed it in the chat, Dan, but my understanding, unless I am misremembering the conversation, is that they are non-voting members.
Yeah. I mean, that would be my understanding as well. I think, this is probably something where this would require more comprehensive overhaul of the bylaws or a closer examination. But I think there are quite a number of committees that, maybe all the committees for that matter, that list administrators who are part of the committee. And there's been a general assumption that they're ex officio. I think the rules for who gets to vote on a committee, unless I'm misremembering, I believe they've never been defined in the bylaws. They've only been defined for the Senate. And we took a step toward defining that for XCOM a year and a half ago, but before that, even XCOM was not really defined very clearly in terms of the difference between ex officio and not. We've just operated off of the guidelines for the Senate. And we've generally assumed with committees that if you don't have a vote in the Senate and you're not a college rep, then you don't have a vote in the committee. But that's not actually clarified anywhere in the bylaws.
We can certainly, looking at Colleen's suggestion, we can clarify that in the membership rather than go through and change that in every single committee.
Yeah, that would be my suggestion, because if you have to change the charter for every committee, that's going to get complicated.
Yeah, so we could say that, we could specify that administrators on a committee are ex officio members.
Okay. So does that help? I guess are people ready to move toward a vote on this, with the understanding that this could be a future project for the Rules Committee? I don't see any comments or objections, so we are probably ready to move to a vote. It looks like it passes 32-4 with 3 abstentions. So back to you, Angie.
Okay, and then the last change comes from Student Affairs and Intercollegiate Activities Committee. And this was changed because they wanted to add esports into the purpose to also not just advise on campus live student collegiate events, but also esports concerning student athletic admission standards, athletic budgets, program expansion or reduction, membership in associations, and to support the enforcement of conference, association, and accreditation rules and regulations. So they want to create a student athletics subcommittee that will serve in a facilitative and advisory capacity to the Director of Athletics. And they too want to change their membership as a result of adding the subcommittee. And again, I think we're going to have the same issue, but we can certainly address that issue in a change to the membership and voting requirements.
Okay, any comments or questions on this? Don't see any raised hands or comments in the chat, so I think we are probably ready for a vote. And this passes 33-3 with 2 abstentions. So thank you, Angie. We now go to the TLA committee. Jason.
Thanks, Dan. Our one action item today is a vote upon our proposed SEI instrument revision timeline and process guidelines. And I'm happy to answer any questions that there might be.
Okay, any questions about this? This is a project I think that has taken, that the TLA committee has spent, I believe, close to 2 years on, at least 1.5 years.
Yeah.
And so there's been a lot of study, faculty surveys, other conversations, and now we're finally ready to vote on a revised package.
We last Senate meeting, we voted upon the revised SEI instrument, which was accepted. So this is actually codifying the process. There had never been any official guidelines, timeline, or outlined categories of data to collect for that process. So based upon the extensive work that the committee members had done, our TLA subcommittee developed this timeline and guidelines for future SEI revisions. So it puts it on a 7-year cycle instead of no cycle. So it codifies a continuous cycle of data collection, analysis, and potential revision.
Okay. Yeah, thanks for that clarification. Sorry about that. So any questions or comments about this, about the timeline? Well, I think we are probably ready for a vote. So we'll launch the poll. And this passes very decisively.
Thank you.
Okay, so I think that concludes our committee reports. and we're now ready to move into an item of old business. So at our last Senate meeting in March, we voted on a revision to the Rules Committee's proposal for the format of the statement in our bylaws that pertains to the format of our Senate meetings. And the reason that we had to vote on that in March was because the original proposal that the Rules Committee proposed in January, which included both the authorization to hold faculty Senate meetings online via Zoom or other technology, and a statement about faculty Senate proxies, was returned by the president with a comment that our definition of what faculty Senate proxies could do, meaning vote for members who were absent, was unacceptable. So we talked at length last meeting about that. There was a general consensus that we should go ahead with the revision of the proposal to take that language out, simply in order to have authorization for our Zoom meetings, and we hope the president will approve of that, although we have not yet received a signing statement from him in response to the March minutes, so it's still unclear. But when we receive that, if we receive approval, then that's something we could bring to the general faculty for a vote. But several people also said at the meeting that they wanted a chance to vote on the original proposal, to send that to the general faculty, or to send it back to the president first, and if it's vetoed, it could go to the general faculty. So what we're now going to do, if people want to do it, is to vote on the beginning of that appeals process. And so what I'm going to need, first of all, we need someone to bring forward the motion, and then a second, so that it's officially on the table. And then we'll have a vote, assuming we get the motion proposed and seconded. We'll vote on the exact same thing that we voted on January 21st. That is to approve the Rules Committee's proposal for the revision of this particular article and in our bylaws. And then if it passes by a 2/3 majority, higher than 50% for this appeals process, it has to be 2/3. Then it would go back to the president's desk, and he would have the opportunity to reconsider his veto. He could, if he decides to sustain it, then this would automatically go to the general faculty for a vote that would begin soon after the presidential signing statement arrives with that veto message, assuming that it is vetoed. And then with the general faculty, if it's vetoed again, then we could appeal it to the chancellor. And eventually the chancellor would make the final decision on this. So the floor is open. Would anyone like to make a motion to reintroduce the measure from the Rules Committee from January 21st?
I'm happy to make the motion.
Okay. So we've got a motion on the table. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. It's up for discussion and debate. Does anyone want to say anything before we vote?
What do you want the poll to say?
I think what language did we use for the poll in January? Maybe.
Question. You know
Yeah.
what? I actually can go back and look at that vote. Let me go see if I can find it.
Okay.
All right. Meeting.
And we may be able to, I guess I'll try to pull up the Senate minutes from January 21st. So take a minute.
Oh, it's not going back that far.
Okay. That's okay, because I think we can get it from the January 21st minutes I'm going to, I've pulled up the minutes and I'm going to scroll down
Oh, wait a minute.
to see.
What was that? January 21st?
Yes, January 21st.
Nope.
So I think, let's see. So I believe, okay, so I think the poll will say, well, here's the suggested language for the poll. Do you approve the modification to Article Roman numeral 3, point A of the Faculty Senate bylaws as proposed by the Rules Committee on January 21st? So if this by some chance is approved, which you know, I'm not predicting that it will be, but if by some chance this actually is approved, meaning I'm not predicting that the president will approve it, but if by some chance we pass it and it's approved by the president, then this would automatically replace the modified version that we adopted in March as a substitute for this original, and we could simply submit this. So that's what we're voting on. The difference, of course, between the version we approved in March and this version is that the version that we're voting on today allows for faculty senate proxies who have the right to vote. Okay, if you have the poll ready, I think we're ready to launch it.
All right, I'm ready.
Okay. Okay, it passes very decisively, 32-2 with 3 abstentions. That's well over the 2/3 majority. So this will go back to the president's desk. And if it's vetoed, it will go to the general faculty for a vote. I think that concludes old business. Colleen, I'll let you cover the new business regarding the executive secretary nomination, if you'd like.
So we have one nomination for executive secretary with a 3-year term to begin on July 1st. Our nomination is for Laura McCloskey Wolf to serve as executive secretary. The business on the table is that Faculty Senate will accept the nomination. If you accept the nomination, we will then take this to the general faculty and we will present this as a nomination to the general faculty on April 29th, and then there will be a vote that will happen after the general faculty meeting that will take place among the general faculty for about a week. And that's it.
Yeah. So my understanding is that this is not a vote for Laura McCloskey Wolf in particular. We already have one candidate who has agreed to be a candidate some months ago for this position, Emily Hunt, and we're grateful for her for volunteering. We're also grateful to Laura.
No, that's actually not. Laura is the only nominee that we have.
Okay, I'm sorry. I guess I was misinformed.
Yeah, that's okay. Sorry.
Okay.
Yeah, so this is the nominations that we have received for executive secretary are one nomination. I contacted Laura and asked her if she would accept the nomination. She accepted the nomination and is excited to serve. And so the process is that the Faculty Senate is presented with the nomination. They then can accept or not accept the nomination. And then we then take that to the general faculty at the general faculty meeting and then present them with the nomination. And then there's a formal vote that happens through Qualtrics alongside the vote that we'll have for the post-tenure review appeals committee.
Okay. Okay, so this is our candidate slate, and we will move forward, I guess, with this vote. And certainly appreciate the one candidate for agreeing to accept the nomination. Seeing no comments, I think we're ready for a vote.
unanimous.
Okay, well, excellent. A good way to end the meeting, I think. Are there any announcements that we need to be aware of? I know that Shelley typed something into the chat a couple hours ago regarding the Heather's the Musical. You can look at that in the chat if you overlooked it before. So that's one announcement that could be made. Anything else that we need to know before we adjourn for today? So there will be a meeting on June 10th. As I've mentioned, I think everyone knows that. So mark that on your calendars. We'll come back, same format, same time, 1 p.m. During the summer session. We'll vote on the FDC proposal for PTR revision. There may be other things on the agenda too. We'll see. But in the meantime, that concludes the Senate business for the regular academic year. Thank you for everyone who put in such long hours on some of your committees to make sure that we could successfully vote on everything today. I hope you'll have a wonderful weekend, and I'll see you at the summer meeting. Meeting's adjourned.